What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Takeaways edition of the Vegas Nation podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Fang, and today joining me, the Autumn Windbags. We have RJ, Clifford, and Juan Soto here. And this is my new studio. Wanted to show everybody, if you're listening, I am in a brand new Vegas Nation studio that is brought to you by Station Casinos, STN Sports. Download that mobile app today. We're also presented to you on Blue Wire Podcast by Liquid Death. Crush the can. RJ, you could probably do this. You're like trained and fighting. Crush.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like if it was full of malt liquor, I'd be able to crush it right away, which is also accurate.
That
either way.
Actually the perception. Yep. People think that it is malt liquor. This is in fact mountain spring water. How about that? Yeah. Liquid Death. All right. So into the show. Raiders offseason, 6 wins. Not really what anybody expected or wanted. You two are some of the biggest fans. Your show, Autumn Windbags, you cover it all, like literally everything. I love it. One of the things I love is the social media aspect of it. When you guys are talking about Kardashians, what Derek Carr is and isn't saying. Juan, you put out some great stuff on social media. The statement that Derek went out and made recently about getting ready to kind of tell their story, preparing to talk about it. There's been all this talk from David about the Harvester podcast and when they're going to start doing that. What have been your thoughts, first of all, Juan, since you put out the memes and things like that?
My best work.
What should Derek be doing as he navigates this new process from being not a Raider to being courted by other teams and the potential talk of where he could land? How do you think that he should best navigate this right now on social media?
Just talk about the support he's getting, and that's about it. All the other stuff, don't talk about anything until you're ready to talk about something, because it's like, I'm advertising, I have something to say, but I'm such a great guy, I'm not going to say it yet, but later I will say it. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you're going to say something, if you have something to say, either go ahead and say it or don't say anything at all.
RJ, do you think it affects the stock?
Well, I'm with Soto in that, like, what can you say here, right? If you're gonna, like, you're trying to be as valuable as possible, right? Like, you've got potentially 31 other teams to go to. You have a no trade clause. Like, you want to go where you want to go, and you want to look as good as possible. You're a free agent, right? It's just standard operating procedure. But I can also understand where he's like, everyone and their mom is hitting him up. Like, what's the story? What's the dirt? Come do an interview. Come do a podcast. Come on my show. Come on, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. He's kind of like, no, like, here's my like blanket to everybody. I'm not saying anything. Like, I'm not doing it, right? Like, he should have just said that instead of like, I know something y'all don't know. But I do get why he's like, guys, just like, stop. Like, I'm not doing an interview on this, especially right now when my future is like in the balance, where I'm going to go, where I'm going to play, where I'm going to live. Like, that's in the balance right now. I'm like, your interview is not important to me.
I think too, he has the brothers all around him. We all know this. And David's going on doing these like promos on Twitter and I think Instagram as well that I went on to about the Harvester podcast. Like, we're not going to talk about it yet, but when we talk about it, you're going to be ready for when it drops. And all this excitement about it. Like, should David kind of be pulling off the gas too a little bit? What's your thought, RJ?
I wish my brothers supported me the way the Carr brothers support each other. Like, if I was going through some, my brother's going to kick me when I'm down. They'd be Soto making memes of me. Like, they would be like all this, like, these guys are willing to embarrass themselves in support of their brother, which I appreciate, which is okay. That's a good brotherhood there. But also, like, that's what David Carr does. He's a television host and he's looking for ratings. He's looking for interaction, and he has a relationship with, a 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback free agent that people, it's on, anyone who needs a quarterback, they're at least kicking the tires on Derek Carr, if not, already talking with Ziegler about what's going to take to trade him, right? And so he's going to be, he's being talked about. And David Carr's like, this is my chance to shine, right? Like, this is my chance. Like, Derek Carr's in the news. I'm going to be in the news.
I love it. When you think about 2-1, just the possibility of what happens now with that position for the Raiders, what is your dream quarterback?
I would like I would say, Aaron Rodgers would be good because, he's not going to play that long. And if we can trade back maybe a few spots in the first round to get some more draft capital, but still be able to get like an Anthony Richardson at like 11 or 12-ish around there. I don't want to trade. I'm thinking we should do what Jimmy Johnson did in, what was it, 89? when he traded back, like almost every single round, he traded back a few spots, got more picks. They end up getting a ton of picks. If we can get that many players, because what do we got? What do we need? And what's healthy in the draft, right? DBs are healthy in the draft. You got some good linemen. There's depth there. So if you can get a quarterback that is smart, is a little bit more dynamic than Carr was, and he doesn't want to play too long, you can develop that younger quarterback early, and you can get more picks.
RJ, do you think that they need to go at number 7 with a quarterback if there is a good one available? Do you like the idea of trading back, or do you think that there's like some really good offensive and defensive line talent that they should just stay at 7 and try to go with one of those?
Well, it's interesting because you brought up the original question is like, what's the dream scenario? And the dream scenario is we get a Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and they turn out to be the real deal and have the quarterback for 15 years. Like that's the dream, right? That's the hope. But the Raiders have so many holes all over the place outside of the skill position that it's like, do you trade up to get Bryce Young and miss out on 2 spots where you need? Soto and I have been talking about this ever since before the season even ended. We're just like trade back, volume. Because there's this myth. There's no such thing as a GM that never misses in drafts. Like that doesn't happen. Like there's some really terrible drafters out there, John Gruden, and then there's guys that are like a little bit better. But there really isn't. Like people always talk about, oh, Bill Belichick, he's so great with the draft. Like his team is full of home drafted guys. It's not that his hit percentage is higher. It's just that he just has a ton of draft picks. Like he's just so good at getting conditional rounds and trading guys away and getting picks before they're all like numbers. It's a numbers game, usually the shotgun approach. And because we have, especially with the Raiders, who have a million holes to fill, especially on defense and O-line.
Yeah, Juan, what's your thought on that with the positional need?
There's just so much volume and so much talent in positions that we need. Basically everything on the defense and offensive line, especially I like a lot of the interior offensive linemen later in the draft. There's just so many of them. It's hard not to like fall into a bunch of picks. You know what I'm saying? There's just so much volume, especially like secondary stuff late in the draft. Maybe it's top heavy, but there's also a lot of depth in both of those positions. So yeah, shotgun approach, trade back as many times as you can and still get the guys that you want. And if there's a guy that maybe you see that you want that's going to fit a really big need and you're really high on, you can use some of those picks that you're getting extra to move up if you need to.
And I also don't think, I think Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler realize like they're on the hot seat here, right? Yeah. Like if next season starts off goes like this season, like they're not going to make it to the end of the season, right? And so do they really want to start off with a rookie quarterback right out of the gate in a Josh McDaniels system that's super complicated? I don't think so. So if one of these really big quarterbacks fall to number 7, right? Like a Richardson or I don't know, Stroud, like let's say it does happen, right? They're gonna have offers. They're going to have 10 offers, right? You take that offer, right? You trade back. You give me a couple other first-round picks. You give me some picks for that quarterback. Because I think they're going to go veteran. I think they're going to go veteran Josh McDaniels quarterback because they have to do something this next season. They're not going to get back-to-back seasons of rebuilding.
Both of you Raider fans, I know how it feels probably to look at the idea of Tom Brady taking over this offense. Are you for or against it?
I'm for winning. I don't care who's there. I don't care who the coach is. I don't care I don't buy any current player jerseys for a specific reason. I don't care who's there. I just want to win. I buy retired player jerseys all day. I do not play. I won't buy any. I almost got burnt by Khalil Mack, but I didn't buy his jersey. I said, no, I can't do it because you never know. And look what happened. I don't care who's there. Just win.
This is how far I go in that exact same theory. My wife got me, I'm a Kings fan for hockey, right? I like Kings fan. She got me a Kyle Clifford jersey because when he was traded, I still have a jersey that says Clifford on it. So it's not wasted, right? Like that's how far we are in the Soto thinking in the Clifford household. It's like, oh yeah, we'll buy jerseys players, but it's got to have the same last name or it's got to be one that we can reuse. Exact same thing. Like Tom Brady fits a lot in this, like, all right, we've got a skill positions that can win now. Yeah. Tom Brady knows obviously the Josh McDaniels system. Getting Tom Brady would, bring in free agents that want to follow him. All those things, right? I just don't buy Tom Brady wanting to go to the Raiders. I mean, the guy's been a front runner his entire career. He's always had a top 5, top 10 defense. He's had when he doesn't have an amazing offensive line, he's going to be 900 years old next season, right? Like he has to be protected with a very good O line, which the Raiders currently do not have. So like I think it'd be great. It'd be he would do so much for a franchise that needs some stability. The kind of culture that he'd bring to a franchise in the last 20 years, it's been so dysfunctional. Like he would bring a lot of good. I just don't buy him wanting to take that on at 46 with potentially one last season. I just don't buy him doing that. And most importantly, I'd have to come with a new nickname for him because they can't call my quarterback Tuck Rule Tommy. Like it just wouldn't be fair.
Yeah, you definitely have to think about that, put some names on a drawing board, think about what comes forward. And when you think about, like you said, the offensive line, I don't know that some of those guys come back. You have to think about what Andre James, is he still going to be the center? Is it going to be a Luminor? Does Parham move over to the center position and Andre's like challenging to start? I just don't know right now, aside of Colton Miller, and that Dylan Parham will be somewhere on the line. But outside of that, you're looking at possibly getting 3 new positions. Is that troubling, do you think, to try to sell Las Vegas to any other quarterback on the outside, or is Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs enough?
I think that the way that the offensive line improved as the year went along, it's kind of a selling point, saying that this is going to be a second season. These guys are going to be together. We're going to improve it. Like Alex Bars, sorry, man, you're a Raider for us and everything, but you couldn't cut it, unfortunately. And could be a great guy, but on the field, he got used too many times. So we're going to upgrade. Illuminor played really the I think the last two seasons he played under McDaniels, he played really well in New England a few years ago. So I mean, I'm not that down on Andre James. I think he can be a steady influence, but Parham probably does seem to be like has a higher ceiling. But I don't think it's that dire because they didn't improve vastly throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, the momentum was on their side. They still never really good. And this is the weird thing about O lines, right? Like it's not, they need to be greater than the sum of their parts. Like the more, like that was always what I thought the strategy was for the Raiders starting this season, is like, okay, if we're young, healthy, they can grow together as a unit and become better than the sum of their parts. I mean, we're not like littered with Pro Bowlers, right? Like, like the Eagles or like the Cowboys line or something like that. But if they can play well together and mesh, then that's where we can save our money, right? We're spending all this money on skill position players. We can save some money with an O-line that can kind of work together. And that sort of happened. I don't think they go nuts at O-line. I think they bring in guys that can improve and have it be open competition. I think it's like, all right, we're going to draft some more guys, maybe pick up a couple free agents. May the best unit stay, right? May the best unit stay. They've talked multiple times about how they don't believe in like 5 guys because no one ever stays healthy. They want basically 8 starters, and they just kind of figure it out as the season goes on. So I think that's kind of the same thing they'll do next season.
Welcome back to the Takeaways edition at the Vegas Nation podcast. It's Heidi Fang with RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. They are the Autumn Windbags joining me here on the show. I wanted to get your take on something that I heard you guys talking about. Who did Tom Brady say goodbye to? Was it over? Is he going to step back? Like you said, RJ, the age he is 900 years old.
900 going on 901. Yeah, right. I don't want to exaggerate. That's not fair to him.
When you're that age at quarterback years and you've taken some, he hasn't been hit that much in his career, but any of the physicality at this point, probably a little bit more difficult. So when you think about being Tom Brady, you're saying goodbye, are you just kind of reflecting because it's been a huge emotional year, or are you looking back on everything at this point and deciding if you want to even come back?
Yeah, like therapists and like scientists will always say like the actual words is only so much of communication, it's the body language. And that's what I got out of the Tom Brady goodbye after their final loss. It wasn't so much like just the words he said, but kind of how he was saying it. Like after a loss, Brady's like pissed, he's stoic, short answers. This case, he was smiling, being gracious. Like I thought he was going to invite all the media to his house after for like tea and crumpets. Like it did not feel like Tom Brady. It felt like someone with a lot of weight off their shoulders. And you see that, like, you're a mixed martial arts person, Heidi. Like after when fights are over, you almost see a physical transformation in fighters where all the pressure, all the buildup, all the stress, all the preparation, the fight's over, win or lose. And they're just kind of go, okay. Weights off the shoulders. And that's what it felt like with Tom Brady. It sounded more like a goodbye to Tampa Bay as opposed to goodbye to football, but it was a very staunch goodbye to something.
I really wish that in football it would be like MMA, because they start to take their gloves off. They leave them there in the ring, in the octagon. You know that they're done. So it's like, I wish you had that in the same aspect in football. Like, they take off their helmet and the shoulder pads and put it on the logo on the 50-yard line, and they walk away symbolically. But Juan, do you think he's done anything in that kind of a sense, like that's been symbolic that he's done?
It just, like RJ said, some of the body language, like he was just leaning so hard on that podium. He was like, oh, I'm so tired. This has been going on for so long. And I never heard him talk that way. I never heard him say, even when he left New England, I don't remember him saying, hey, local guys, you guys do a great job. Thank you so much for being gracious with your time. And thank you so much for respecting my time and stuff like that. He got very personal with the local media there. And it seemed like, okay, it's almost like what you want to have happen. If you want him to keep playing, if you want him to play for the Raiders, oh, he's just saying goodbye to Tampa Bay. But if you're like, well, I don't really care what he does, it kind of seems like he's just tired. Like, oh, I need to like lean on something because I'm just so emotionally drained. And honestly, I don't know if he's going to want to put himself through that again.
Especially when you have a deal waiting for you to be a broadcaster for hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, that has to probably figure into it, right, Juan?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like he doesn't have any other options here. If it's like, if they want to give me $37 million to play, what other choice do I have? Sit at home and spend money? Okay, fine. I'll go make another, 37 million. But if I have that same amount waiting for me on a whatever 10-year deal that I signed, I'm going to want to do that instead, or I'm going to have to think a lot harder on that.
This is single Tom Brady now too. Like, such a different time. Like, this is a Tom Brady that's been on Bumble the last few months. Like, maybe that's why he's so much more personable. He's used to like chatting up with strangers. Like, he hasn't had to do that in a long time. He's
out partying with Gronk.
Yeah.
Out,
right. That's why he's tired. He's hungover from Gronk time.
Exactly. I mean, imagine if those two, I don't know if Gronk would come out, but if they got back together, do you think Gronk would entertain it if Tom was playing for the Raiders and said, let's go?
I think if anyone could talk him into it, I think it would be Tom Brady.
If anyone can talk him into it, it'd be like, hey, Gronk, I need you to meet me at Sapphires. We have a business meeting. I'm going to show you what we can do in Vegas. I'm going to show you what it's like playing in Las Vegas. I dare you to tell me no, Gronk. I double dare you.
Single Tom and Gronk in Vegas is not a good idea.
For all the reasons that we're saying, like, Vegas is fine. I mean, everybody's going to be focused when they get here. This might be the example of where it's not. But
it's like very old Raiderish though, right? A lot of like the old Raiders back in the day, just partying and getting into fights and getting drunk and then going onto the field and kicking.
I mean, and it was kind of scary there for a little bit, Heidi. I mean, Ruggs, Jacobs DUI, Damon Arnett getting in trouble, like Nate Hobbs passing out out Dre's parking lot. Like, there was a little bit of a period where it kind of felt like, maybe Vegas would be too much. It's been quiet for a while, which is great, but I don't know. What do you think? Like, I mean, you can't, like, you have to go past the strip when you land at the airport to get to like Summerlin. Like people say like, oh, you can find trouble in any city. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not driving by 13 5-star strip clubs in Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like, it is a little different in Vegas.
I'll give you that. But for the most part, I figure like if you get somebody like a Colton Miller that seems so grounded as a player, that I think just needs to now be a part of the repertoire. How you decide on a player that's going to come in, like how solid is that head on their shoulders, and Damon Arnett was just brandishing guns on social media. So I don't know how much that had to do with anything, but as far as Vegas, goes and the influence, but I think that anybody here, as long as you stay focused and committed to what it is that you need to get done, like I barely go to the strip, but I'm also old and I just don't do that. I'm a homebody. So it's a little different for me as opposed to a guy that has millions of dollars and enlists like entourage and people to go hang out with at any time that you want to without children. Yeah. I always have to think about that part. Babysitters. These guys have nannies. Yeah. So I digress. But I wanted to talk too about the playoffs, what you've seen from the final four teams. You have 49ers, Eagles, these teams that have made it in, obviously the Chiefs and the Bengals. What is it about them that has separated them from the pack? Is it quarterback? Is it offensive line? Is it solid defensive play that makes them good? And how do the Raiders start to build that for themselves here? What do you think, RJ?
Well, I mean, all four teams have all four of those, right? Like fantastic quarterbacks, above average, if not great defenses, and solid offensive line play. Like they've got it, and credentialed solid coaches that know what they're doing. And they've got kind of like their own little thing, right? Like somehow the Bengals have convinced themselves that like no one believes in them and they're underdogs. It's like you were in the Super Bowl last year. Like the mental gymnastics required to be like, oh man, we're the nobodies that are new kids on the block. It's like, okay, whatever, right? The Eagles just like they found their like very specific brand of football, and the way the Niners have been able to rally around Brock Purdy and just playmakers everywhere, and Shanahan's brilliant offensive scheme, and then arguably the best defense in football. Like they all kind of found their own little brand, and that was my biggest pet peeve with specifically the Raiders defense last season was like not just that it was bad, but it had like no real identity. Under Gus Bradley, it was a bad defense, but we're like, okay, we're gonna keep everything in front of us. You're not going to hit big plays on us. And that really didn't happen. It was rare that you know, a 45-yard bomb would beat the Raiders, but they would nickel and dime us to death, and the red zone was terrible. But we had an identity. Not good, but we kind of knew what we were trying to do. Under Patrick Graham, I didn't know what that was. Like we gave up big plays. We gave up little plays. Guys were able to grind us down. We had moments where the defense played good. It was never more than a half at a time. Just a defensive identity, I think, should be the number. Obviously, quarterback's number one. Defensive identity should be the next big priority.
Juan, did you look at what Brian Daboll did with the Giants defense and compared it all to what you saw to Patrick Graham with this Raiders defense this year?
Well, I think Patrick Graham left a much more talented defense behind in New York. The talent is there. The talent is just better. You can start there. All up and down their defense, they just have better players. We have a lot of guys that were signed late, a lot of guys that wouldn't start on other teams, some guys that are maybe a little bit past their prime, and maybe one or two guys that you can really use as building blocks moving forward. Other than that, you just got a bunch of guys that were just, you know, what do they call them? They call them Jags, just guys, just a guy. They just what they are. You got a bunch of guys there that you're looking to, hopefully they can take that next step, and like a Duron Harmon, and play above what they have in the past. But other than that, guys played like who they were. And it's just, that's the first thing, is to defensively talent-wise. Now, let's not talk about, I want to maybe touch on a little bit about how offense can hurt your defense. Because on a lot of these games that we lost, our offense didn't do anything in second halves of games. So you have a defense that's playing above themselves, who's already lacking talent, and then they're tired and worn down at the end of games because you keep throwing them back on the field after 3 and outs and 3 and outs. Of course, you're going to give up points. And when you're not scoring and you have the bulk of the cap on the offense, and the offense isn't coming through at the end of the game, something's got to give.
That's a great point that you made there, that the defense would make those stops. Not every game, but there were a lot of occasions where they did, and then the offense didn't come through for him. So there's a lot to be worked out, I think, in the offseason. If you had to prioritize what you look at in the offseason, what's the first positional need that you try to take care of? What is it for you, RJ?
Well, the obvious answer is quarterback, right? Like we gotta have a quarterback. That's like kind of the no-brainer. After that, I'd say from quarterback and cornerback, we got to be able to cover these fantastic receivers that we're gonna be playing against in the AFC West and all throughout. Like the receiver play in the NFL is just getting so goddamn good. And we're not going to really be able to move on from Chandler Jones because of his contract. So we really can't afford to pick up another really good defensive end to play opposite Max Crosby. We're just kind of stuck with Jones for the foreseeable future. So getting pressure is going to be premium. Hopefully it's going to be Crosby, and maybe some defensive tackles can get some pressure. But other than that, like all three layers of defense, we need help. But I would say quarterback 1, cornerback 2.
How about for you, Juan?
For sure, it's the same. We gotta have a quarterback, and you have to have a guy that defends quarterbacks, which is your entire secondary. I'm not sold. I'm not. Sorry. It's all right. You all right over there? Have some of that.
He's saying you're full of
liquid,
it. He's not believing what you're saying.
Get some of that liquid death over there. No, but it's his entire secondary. I'm not sold on our safeties. I think Merrick took a step back this last year. We'll see. The draft is chock full of corners and safeties that are very accomplished and really good. So hopefully we can snag some of those guys. And like RJ said, just it's hard to pinpoint 1 and 2 because the entire defense just needs an influx of talent.
Volume, just volume. Just trade back, get picks, just start throwing bodies in there until we get somebody that works.
As we start to wrap things up, I wanted to get one more take on something with Derek Carr, something I've been thinking about. Was it that he was just kind of struggling to pick up the McDaniels offense more so than it was that McDaniels' offense is super complex and it would take anybody more than a year to pick it up? What do you kind of put it on?
Ultimately, I think the marriage didn't work for the same reason a lot of marriages don't work. They just didn't communicate. They were mismatched. And as the season went on, you saw Carr's play regress. So as he got more comfortable and more knowledge and more used to the system, he started playing worse. And so I don't think that was the issue. I think he just had lost trust because he took his Josh McDaniels criticism more personal than football. And I think the way that Carr did that is the way a lot of Carr fans look at Carr, where they want the player to match the person. And he's a great person and not a great player. And that mesh between, that link between personal and football, I think is a little bit too tight from Derek Carr. And he couldn't separate the criticism and coaching, especially in front of his teammates, and probably lost trust with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
I think it was a combination of 9 years of watching this franchise fiddle around and screw around and not have a direction, plus Josh McDaniels that eventually just broke Carr. I mean, this is his worst statistical season since his rookie year.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't just get bad. Like, he averaged in the last 3 seasons a 98 quarterback rating. That dropped 12 points this season, right? Like, something changed. He's not as bad as he played this season. So it's what Soto said. I think the McDaniels Carr relationship specifically, square peg, round hole, like, use whatever euphemism you want, just didn't work. 9 seasons of this just weighing down on him. We're talking about Tom Brady having weight off his shoulders. I hate to say it because I love the Raiders. When Derek Carr leaves somewhere, it's going to be more stable than here, and he's going to see what that's finally like. It was a slow burn and a quick exit, all kind of at once. It was like the perfect vortex of problems that led to this terrible offensive unit this year.
Or the bomb cyclone, as they call those storms that come over the East Coast, turn into these crazy spirals of snow.
Yep. Hurricane McDaniels.
Exactly.
I'm not one to like, oh, let's, don't cry for me, Argentina, Derek Carr. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, the years of getting ground down by the franchise. Look, everything was hunky dory as long as he was seen as the leader, the guy to look up to, the counselor. Like, that's the standard, right? As soon as he started getting his mail read in front of all of his teammates, and maybe he felt he was losing a little bit of status, that's when he started to implode. That's when he started crying in front of, in press conferences. That's when he started to call out teammates, which he normally doesn't do. And, that's when teammates started to question him, because you look at this is our leader. This is the guy, and he's screwing up left and right. And, on Hondo's article said that the teams were starting to question Carr's play.
That's definitely something that I think you could see as you were looking down the pipe at some of these opponents and the way that they were attacking them. They were just trying to work on Carr, contain Carr a lot more often than not. But Autumn Windbags here, trial show, news studio. Thank you so much, you guys, for
beautiful
joining me.
studio. So we were on our best behavior because we were in like a nice studio. We were like,
I'm a little disappointed.
Like, oh, let's be calm.
I did not say one curse word.
We didn't swear once, not one or fart joke for this entire. That's a new record for us, Heidi.
I can't believe it.
Yeah,
you guys cleaned up for me.
You've cleaned us up, yeah.
But first, tell me what's coming up on Windbags before you guys head out.
Our big show comes out every single Thursday, both on YouTube and wherever you can get your podcasts. A ton of other stuff on YouTube as well. Soto's doing a lot of live shows with whenever news breaks. We do our group shows as well. And we'll start doing interviews again with now that it's the off season. Just all the sophisticated fart jokes you've come to love from the Autumn Windbags. Just more of the same.
Thank you so much for joining me here today, you guys, both of you. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto, give him a follow at the Autumn Windbags.
Instagram is the Autumn Windbags.
Yeah, and Twitter is the Windbags. There's another Autumn Windbags somewhere on Twitter that got it before us. Sure. We got to call them out.
I'm gonna find out who it is.
Yeah.
and see who that eggshell is and if we could crack him. But thank you guys
Get
so
Musk on the
much.
phone.
Appreciate you coming on, and we'll be talking soon here on the Vegas Nation podcast. Make sure to catch all of our shows 3 times a week with Vinny Bonsignor, Sam Gordon, Ed Graney, Adam Hill, and I'm Heidi Fang. Give me a follow at Heidi Fang and check out all that we're doing during the off season to keep you up with the Raiders on VegasNation.com. Thank you everyone so much for listening.